So this is my EOP and Carina Challenge 3 exploration guide. I just finished Carina's yesterday, and I got a really, really cool rank 5. If you want to see what that is, my rewards, or any of the streams, I will drop those down in the description. But if this is what you're here for, to see how to do it and some of the best options, then you've come to the right place. So first off, shout out to Cat Murdoch for putting out these wonderful graphics. And so you can see on the left side, these are each of the defenders with the nodes. And on the right side, these are the different rewards and the different groups for each of the Carina challenges. It's important to note that you can bring in one champion that is not of that tag, but you have to swap them out halfway through, so that would be after Nick Fury, after Overseer. They have to be alive when you swap them out. Drop a 20% revive into them if they're dead. Do not go into the swap with them dead, or you will have to restart the path. Okay, here's the first challenge. We have the left side and the right side for dimensional beings. I'm going to list each side for each challenge, and there is one that is better for each. So for dimensional beings on the left side, I strongly do not recommend you do this. In my opinion, the best team is Hercules, CGR, the Hood, and Gallon. And so ranked from left to right are what I think to be the best options. And so in my opinion, Hercules for the first two, then Hood, Hood, CGR, right? And then CGR, Warlock for, for example, Hercules and Havoc fights, right? It's also worth noting that it's ordered based on if you need to bring them in, right? So for Terrax, there's Hood before America Chavez. America Chavez is better for Terrax than the Hood, in my opinion at least. But it would literally mean bringing her in just for that fight, which doesn't really make any sense, and so she's slotted after the Hood for that reason. Similarly, Ghost Rider, regular Ghost Rider, would probably be better than Gallon for Dragon Man, but no one's going to want to bring Ghost Rider, so he goes to the back. It's also worth noting that America Chavez is getting buffed, and so it's possible that she gets a little bit higher on the priority list. For the right side, same legend, right? Some things that are worthy of note is that Dormammu is a pretty bad option for Scorpion because he does no damage and has class disadvantage, but he is the only poison immune, I believe, and so he's up there just as if you really, really want to try. Similarly, I did actually put Magic ahead of CGR, even though it would mean bringing Magic just for Icarus, because Magic is actually that good. The theory is that you can either L2 chain or throw special 3s, and it should do really, really good damage. If you throw special 3s, make sure he has as many of the Energizes as possible. And Gallon is infinitely better for Penny Parker than any of the other people. And, this is another note. So for Crossbones, Morningstar actually should work in theory pretty darn well. The main issue is, first off, you have to get him at least 3 Furies, so that's kind of hard. I guess you could just parry a bunch. And then the second issue is that you'd bring her just for that, and you'd be stuck with her the rest of the run, presumably. So, yeah. Also, for the best teams, I list them in order of what I think is important. Well, the first thing I list is the champion you want to swap out. Then I list them in order of what I think is most important and vital to the run. For example, Herc. The second one after Herc that is most important is actually probably Hood, but the reason I put CGR second is because if you're running Hercules and you don't have CGR, it's going to be almost impossible to kill Warlock. You don't want to use the Hood versus Warlock. That would suck. And so sometimes the second, or the most important of the 3 tagged champions is merely because it enables the swapped out champion to actually still do the lane. And you'll see that as an instance going forward. But yeah, so this is the Dimensional Beings one. Feel free to take a screenshot or anything like that. Next, we have Thunderbolts. And for Thunderbolts, I guess you can go right side or left side. It doesn't really matter that much. For Thunderbolts, both ones will work. I do think right side is easier, but there are only a couple left side options. So if you have to go left side once and you don't have any of the other left side options, you can go with Thunderbolts, although if it were in a vacuum, the right side would be easier. Noteworthy stuff is that Warlock is here because he does Warlock. He doesn't have willpower, he armor breaks, all that fun stuff. And then he also could do Havoc if you have him on the team, which is really cool. For example, Warlock, right? He's better than CGR, but CGR is better for actually killing the Warlock defender. And so I put CGR first, and CGR is also better for killing Hercules. So even though within the Havoc fight itself, Warlock is better than it's still more worthwhile to bring CGR over him. And so, yeah. Same note for America Chavez. For Blade, only Ghost is a really good option. Everything else is kind of eh. For MODOK, there really aren't that many good options. Red Hulk is decent. Everything else sucks. For Dragon Man, Crossbones is decent. Juggernaut is passable, and Red Hulk might be passable if you're really, really good at wall play. Right side, we have Juggernaut, who's in theory really, really good for Dormammu with the staggers. I haven't tried that matchup. Hercules I know works, and then Red Hulk, if you just play slow, you're going to be hitting hard. For Crossbones, you really only want to be using Hercules and Ghost. And for Overseer, you really only want to be using Hercules and Crossbones as well. For Kraven, yeah, I mean, these are all pretty standard. For Icarus, you have 3 options, although Crossbones and Ghost are easily the best options. And Penny Parker, you only have 2 options. So that is Thunderbolts. Now we have A-Force Alpha Flight. And for the left side, you have Hercules. And see, note that She-Hulk is definitely the most potent of the tag champions. But She-Hulk, if you don't have her, like if you don't have Scarlet Witch on the team, even with like this great She-Hulk that does the rest, like you'll literally never get past Warlock. And so even though She-Hulk is much better overall, Scarlet Witch is the one that beats that roadblock. And so if you don't have Scarlet Witch, you can't use Hercules, right? So that's kind of the logic and the ordering for the best team. But this is what I believe the best team is. I wouldn't personally bring Guardian in just for Havoc. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. Just use Hercules or CGR and you'll be okay. And then Rogue does work really well for Terrax and Blade. So it's worth considering bringing Rogue, although I'd probably honestly just bring CMM. But if you wanted to bring Rogue instead of CMM, you could totally get away with that. Right side, it is pretty much the same stuff. Warlock, I think, should work for Bishop, although I haven't tried that matchup either. And again, I would not necessarily bring Guardian. Even though he does show up twice, I probably would not bring Guardian for these. Just generally not the best idea. And pretty standard there. And oh, it's worth noting that CMM is miles better than anything else for Penny Parker. So you really want to bring CMM if possible. Yeah, pretty much. CMM is really, really good for that fight. Next, we have Brotherhood of Mutants. And for the left side, we have all these little fun things. Hercules, as normal, a lot of Hercules and CGR. And note that if you bring Hercules, you have to use Magneto. Or I guess White Magneto if you're a glutton for punishment. Otherwise, you can't get past Warlock. You could actually, no, you could do Scarlet Witch. There are a couple different options, but... Okay, so I take that back. You can use a bunch of different options, but probably want to use Magneto or Scarlet Witch. Hercules and all that fun stuff. That's the reason why Magneto's second. He's second because he does Dragon Man way better. So you turn on Max Pacify and just parry heavy special 3, pretty much. Right side, because left side's pretty self-explanatory. It's literally just like hard fights. Left side is hard. I went left side. Prof X with a power back boost should nuke Terrax, and then Rogue can just control it. And for for Blade, Rogue will theoretically not make him throw that many specials, while Prof X will have that nuke mode where he's power locked. And so for the right side, we have Dormammu. You could use Juggernaut for it. I personally probably just Herc nuke it because I'm kind of impatient and I want to save the health of my Juggernaut, knowing that Herc is going to get low and probably die anyway. I probably wouldn't bring Omega Red in for any of these fights. I'd bring in Hercules or CGR, and I'd just nuke him down. There's no need to bring Omega Red. I'd bring Hercules or CGR, and I'd bring Juggernaut. You need Juggernaut if you're going to go right side, or you're really going to regret it, and you need a Magneto as well. When I'm saying you need these champions, it's better to bring them in as 5 stars than pretty much anyone else as a 6 star for the most part. It's worthy of note. Then we have Spider-Verse Heroes, and pretty much need CGR for the left side because you want him to clear that the Warlock, but you can also use Warlock on himself and also use him on Havoc, as we've discussed before. On the left side, which is the side that I took, I personally prefer Spider-Gwen to Miles Morales if you have Penny Parker, because she hits just so much harder. She hits so much harder. And she was actually completely my MVP for the run. I used her for Terrax too. I used her for the boss. She was my favorite for the boss. So Spider-Gwen is my favorite, but Miles also is a really good cheese. Either one is going to work. If you bring Spider-Gwen, it would behoove you to bring Penny Parker. And then probably Stealthy. So that's why that's my recommended team. On the right side, Penny for Bishop doesn't really work, but she is Incinerate immune, so in a pinch, I guess you could do it, although I wouldn't really recommend it. Miles can cheese Craven, and Spidey Supreme is really, really good for both Dormammu and Icarus, and I would not go right if you do not have Spidey Supreme. Like, I would not even consider going right if you don't have Spidey Supreme. It is what it is. If you want to try it, you can, but if you didn't have him, I would strongly suggest you go left. For robots, Hercules is a big theme here. I personally went right with robots, and I used Hercules and Omega Sentinel, Dragon Man as a 5-star, and Ultron, and it worked really, really well. For Terrax, and this is a really, really important note, I have Nimrod there. Terrax is very much shock immune, but Nimrod does Incinerates when you have Omega Sentinel on the team. So if you're going to use Nimrod, you have to have Omega Sentinel as well. Otherwise, that's going to be a really, really bad fight. For the most part, you're pretty much going to need Dragon Man even as a 5-star for either run. Just rank him up if you have to. And last slide. So the left side is easier for these. The right side is easier for those. Pretty self-explanatory. If you're having a lot of trouble, you just want to go all right side, you honestly probably can if you have the teams that I discussed, and then just run the left side with a normal team. That's totally fine too. Again, shout out to Cat Murdoch for these wonderful graphics. I combined the two, so these in theory should be most of the rewards, because I already showed the Carina Challenge individual rewards, so this is EOP, and then I threw in the Carina 100% rewards. So pretty standard stuff, and yeah, this is what I would do to explore Carina Challenge Volume 3 if I had to do it again. So I really hope it helps. Let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much for watching, and go crush some content.